I, who loved cooking, married my husband, who loves eating, in a whirlwind romance. But that was a mistake. This food is so terrible. It's worse than dog food. Saying that, Mary threw the dish I cooked into the trash. I will never forgive her. The battle with Mary, who loves to torment her daughter-in-law, begins. My name is Ashley. I got married half a year ago, and we're newlyweds. I met my husband, Christopher, through a dating app. His profile said, I love eating, so I'm looking for someone who's good at cooking. Which matched perfectly with me, as cooking is my hobby. He was delighted with the lunches and sweets I made for our dates and the meals I cooked at home. This is the best homemade food I've ever eaten, he praised. I decided to marry him because I loved watching his smile while eating my cooking. Our marriage happened quite fast, only a month after we met. However, that marriage turned out to be a mistake. My father-in-law passed away soon after we got married. It seems he had been hospitalized for half a year. But he passed away quietly just a few days after we registered our marriage. As if he had been waiting for it. My husband suggested to his grieving mother, why don't you live with us? Honestly, I was reluctant to live together. I wanted to enjoy more of our newlywed life alone with him. However, given the circumstances, I had no choice but to agree. When we started living with Mary, the harassment from her, who had been quiet at first, gradually began. Isn't this shirt all wrinkled? The shirt that I had carefully ironed was all crumpled. Ashley, please throw this away. She would sit heavily on the sofa and tell me to throw away the trash from the snacks she ate. I felt like a maid. You're a stay-at-home wife, so it's only natural you do these things. Mary would say this as if it were a matter of course. When I married my husband, he had asked, would you join the household? So, I quit my job. In hindsight, that too was a mistake. The reason why Mary harasses me is because I'm a stay-at-home wife. You're living off Christopher's earnings, aren't you? She would always say that. When I told my husband, he said, living together is like that. It's stressful living with someone else. We should slowly bridge the gap. But his words didn't help. The harassment escalated day by day. I realized my belongings were either hidden or thrown away. And this was an everyday thing. If I locked my room or put things in a safe, Mary would explode. How can you suspect your own family? I endured desperately. But then the most painful harassment began. I can't eat such awful food. She started to criticize my cooking. For someone who loved to cook like me, these words were the hardest to hear. You don't like it? I'm sorry to hear that. It's like dog food. Too bland. She'd take a little bite, then complain. If I made it richer the next day, she'd say, it's too strong. Are you trying to make me sick? No matter what I cooked, there were complaints. My husband would just eat silently. The husband who used to eat with a smile seemed like he never existed. Unable to bear Mary's daily outbursts, I decided to take up a part-time job. My husband initially opposed, but agreed when I said I'd contribute to the household expenses. Mary's irritation visibly increased since I started working. She's stressed because the person she harasses isn't home all the time. Sometimes, she'd wait at the entrance just to scold me when I got home. At work, I'm told, you learn fast, which helps a lot. I'm regaining the confidence I lost at home. The job is fun, and I've adapted to this new environment. Now, my part-time job is my only solace. But, coming home means facing Mary's harassment. It's dreadful to return, but it's still better than being with her 24 hours a day. One day, Mary had plans to go out. It was our wedding anniversary, and I had the day off from work. I cooked enthusiastically for the anniversary. When my husband came home, he said, "Looks delicious." He was happy with my cooking for the first time in a while. We toasted and ate together. We hadn't had such a moment since moving in with Mary. But this happy time was short-lived. She came back earlier than planned. "Mary, you're back early." Had a bit of trouble. She seemed in a bad mood and glared at me upon seeing the lavish meal. "You prepared such a meal because I'm not here." She tasted a bit and then, in anger, said, "This food is terrible. Worse than dog food," and threw it in the trash. "Mary, how can you do this?" I trembled with anger. I had endured everything until now, but throwing away someone's cooking. She continued, watching Christopher eat such bad food. My husband, looking guilty, mumbled, "Well, it looks good, but..." Ashley thought, he won't side with me in front of his mother." I was filled with tears, but angrier about the disrespect to my cooking. Ashley thought unforgivable. I couldn't sleep that night from being too angry. I thought, I can't take it anymore. I'll definitely get back at them. In the morning, when my husband woke up, the first thing he said was, "Hey, where's my breakfast?" I smiled and said, "I couldn't possibly serve Mary's precious son food that's worse than dog food." Then Mary woke up and shouted, "What do you mean? There's no breakfast for my son." This was all as expected. "I'm sorry for serving you food like dog food until now. I won't make it anymore." Saying that, I only brought my own food to the table. "Eh? What do you mean?" "What do I mean? Your mother said yesterday that it was bad for you. You thought the same, since you didn't say anything last night, right?" My husband had nothing to say. "From now on, I won't cook for you too." After saying that, I quickly finished eating and hurried off to work. I could hear Mary yelling behind me, but I didn't care. I came home later than usual, having eaten at a restaurant nearby. As soon as I got home, Mary confronted me, "You're late." What were you doing? What was I doing? If I'm not cooking, I can come home whenever I want. I've done the laundry and cleaning. She looked baffled. "Ha! You mean you're not cooking dinner either?" She was furious. "I said it in the morning, didn't I? If it's going to be thrown away, I won't cook it in the first place." Wait a minute. I haven't eaten anything. It wasn't me who threw the food away. It was Mom. I always eat your cooking, don't I? My husband was angry along with Mary, but it didn't affect me. As I was about to go to my room, Mary said, "Wait a minute." "What is it?" Mary had a mischievous grin, as if she had thought of something clever. "If you're not going to cook, that's fine. Your cooking is worse than dog food anyway. But if you're only cooking for yourself, you should pay for your own food expenses. You're living off Christopher's money, after all. You should also pay back all the food expenses so far." She spoke arrogantly, breathing heavily through her nose. I took a deep breath and continued. Mary, I have been paying for the food expenses all along." "Eh?" She looked surprised. "Since I started my part-time job, I discussed it with Christopher. We decided that I would pay for the food expenses from my part-time income. I heard that Christopher needed money for something else." Looking at my husband, he started to make excuses in a panic. "But Mom said she didn't have enough money. She said it's hard living on a pension and asked for a little spending money. I don't know how much you give to your mother, but because of that, we've been struggling to live on just your salary. That's why I decided to work part-time." Mary shouted, her ears turning red. "Then what about the food expenses until now? Pay back the food expenses from before you started your part-time job." Her childish and unreasonable statement made me respond calmly. "I may be a part-timer, but I haven't spent my salary on myself at all. Lately, I've been paying not only for the food expenses but also for most of our living expenses. If you want me to calculate it properly, I will, but as of now, you are living off my part-time income." Mary was trembling with anger, unable to respond. "Mary, you seem to enjoy dining out every day. Why don't you cut back on that? Can't you manage your pension? And if you don't need lunch or dinner because you've eaten out, please let me know in advance. It's a waste if you don't eat what I've cooked and it gets thrown away." "How do you know that? You always say to sort the trash properly. But you never do, so I always end up doing it. You shouldn't throw away receipts, coupons, and plastic waste from various restaurants together." I smiled back at her. "And the one who should be making demands is me." Seeing my serious face, both of them looked bewildered. "I was late coming back today because I went to get this." I held out a divorce paper. "What? Divorce? Wait a minute. You think you can get a divorce just because you're a part-timer? And what do you mean by demands? Are you trying to get a property division after you brought up the divorce?" she said, her face contorted. "Yes, property division. I have recorded all the harassment from you, Mary. I also visited a lawyer today. It seems I can get a good deal out of this." Mary's face turned pale. My husband started to make excuses in a panic. "Hey. You're kidding about the divorce, right? Please reconsider. I couldn't side with you because I was caught between you two. I've always been grateful to you, and your cooking is really delicious. I mean it." He was begging, but I felt nothing. I wanted to hear those words much earlier. "It's too late now. You always think about yourself. Trying to appease me now that I want a divorce?" Seeing the determination in my eyes, my husband seemed a bit taken aback. I returned to my room and took out the luggage I had prepared. I hadn't slept last night due to anger and had packed everything after they went to bed. I hadn't planned on leaving the house the day after yesterday, but the schedule just moved up a bit. Seeing me with the suitcase, both were shocked. "Hey. You don't have to leave today. Let's calm down and talk. Where do you think you're going? You think you can just leave because you're a part-timer?" She always looked down on housewives and part-timers. "I'm fed up with it. However, that's only until today." I answered with a smile. "I'm becoming a full-time employee next month. My current company has good benefits and treats both part-timers and full-time employees well. They recognize hard work and offer opportunities for part-timers to become full-time. They don't treat us poorly just because we're part-timers. The company provides an apartment, so I'll live there from now on. Though I'll go to my parents' house today. Thank you for everything so far. Please communicate through my lawyer from now on." I left the house briskly. I had already contacted my parents. They had said, "You can come back anytime." But they probably didn't expect me to return the next day. I felt a bit sorry. Despite this, my parents welcomed me warmly. I couldn't thank them enough. After staying with my parents for a while, I completed the procedures for my full-time employment and started living alone. I frequently received apology emails from my husband and Mary. However, my husband's were mostly excuses. And Mary's were along the lines of, "I was thinking of you," always implying she did nothing wrong. Their apologies seemed to hint at wanting a reduction in property division. My lawyer advised me to ignore them. As for the two of them, I heard they were living a difficult life, with the house in disarray and struggling with property division and living expenses. Thanks to the neighborhood network, the fact that I was tormented by Mary spread quickly. Mary was humiliated by this. I heard most of her friends are refusing to go out with her. Their life didn't improve just because they stopped dining out. Apparently, Mary has never been good at household chores. I heard the house is a mess, with convenience store trash scattered around. It seems my father-in-law had been taking care of the housework. But after his hospitalization, with no one to maintain the house, it quickly fell into disrepair. In an effort to find someone to manage the household, Mary pushed my husband to register on a dating app, and that's how they found me. It was disappointing to realize they were looking for someone to be a housekeeper from the start. I was completely deceived. But now, I no longer have to worry about those two. I now invite family and friends over to my apartment and treat them to meals. Everyone says it's delicious and enjoys eating. Seeing their happy faces makes me happy too. I realized I don't have to limit the joy of cooking to just pleasing my husband. It's enough that my loved ones enjoy it. That's my greatest happiness.